Parents and teachers, you'll like this one too, but parents, if you are your kid's alarm clock, you wake them up and it's getting old. This video is for you. This video is based on a note that I got in the TIFOS Facebook group. This is a bunch of parents and teachers and therapists in this Facebook group from the summit that I do. And this video really has to do with how do you let your child fail? When is it the right time? How do you let them fail in a safe way? And I'm going to explore this, and I'm going to talk about several concepts so that by the end of this video, you, the parent or the teacher, have a really great awareness of when to let them quote fail, how to do that, and a couple of strategies that are in this email or in this note that really stand out to me. So this is about failure, when it's a good thing, when you fail safe. Let me show you this email first to start. Here we go. So this is taken from the group I just put in the document. Natural consequences, the parent says. One of my takeaways from the summit was to not be my kid's executive function, at least as much, and allow natural consequences to happen. Yesterday was a test for me. My daughter started community college 2 weeks ago. Yesterday, she had classes at 8 a.m. Her alarm went off at 7 and again at 7:09, then silence. I told her the night before I'd give her a ride as long as she was ready by 7:30, but after that, I had commitments. At 7:19, I started getting anxious. At 7:24, I was irritated. I watched the clock tick down, reminding myself not to save her. That was hard. The clock hit 7:30. I had a slightly odd sense of relief. I was sticking to my word. So now she was on her own to get to school, but she still wasn't up. So I was still anxious, wondering if she'd save herself or miss class. I decided to quickly get ready for work and get the heck out of the house. Once it passed 8, I knew she hadn't left the house. I let it go. Didn't matter if I wanted to save her anymore. I couldn't. I didn't think about it much during the day, other than to rehearse how I'd approach a conversation when I got home. Stay calm, ask questions, listen. Yeah, that's a real problem. When I got home, I calmly went to her room, knocked on her door, partly to see if she was still asleep. She wasn't. I know I noticed you weren't up for class. What's up? I calmly and quietly asked. She said, I missed my classes because I didn't wake up. That sounds like a real problem. What do you think? I responded. Yes, it is. But I emailed my professors and told them I forgot to set my alarm. They got back to me with the work I need to make up, so I'm working on that. After a few seconds, I told her I agree that missing class is a problem, but emailing her teachers was a really smart, wise way to deal with it. Then I offered that we could talk later if she wanted to about ideas for getting up and ready to go on time. Baby steps. There is so much good in this. And for you dads watching, I mean, I know that a lot of you deal with similar sorts of situations, and it doesn't matter if it's the alarm or not. So I'm going to dive into some concepts here, what this parent did that really was working, why it worked, how you can apply it yourself, and just break this down for you so that you feel really empowered. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the problem here, the problem in some more global ways. So the problem here has to do with failure. How and when do we let kids fail? When do we let them fail in a safe way? How do we let them? Because it's not always good to let them fail, but a lot of times we're doing too much of it. What does doing too much of it mean? Well, I'm going to give you some things that I hear, different ways of parents saying it. They'll say things like, I'm rescuing my kid too much. I'm enabling my kid too much is a way to say it. Something more clinical, this is maladaptive, or this is dysfunctional when I do this. I'm not helping when I'm helping, or I'm helping too much. And so these, I'm rescuing, enabling, saving. This parent used the word saving. So these are different ways that people say it. Now we can also say, not only did I help too much, but there are also parents who are on the other side of the pendulum where they're not helping enough. They're like, just let them figure it out, but they really aren't there. And in either case, the intention is the same. The intention is to be helpful. The question is it actually helping? So that's where we're going to start. Now, I'm going to talk again about the fail safe and the failure. And now I'm going to go into some other concepts, okay? That these concepts have to do with sort of how you're going to find when to let them fail. So these concepts right here are how to know when. So these are all very similar concepts, and you hearing them in this context might be helpful for you. So one of the things that you might want to contemplate in thinking about that is the way that I describe it is I talk about the comfort zone and the threshold. So the way I describe it, when I'm working with kids, when I'm coaching kids, I say play in the gray. There's this gray zone, and then you have this zone and this zone. There's this gray zone, and that's where the magic happens. What is that zone? Well, here's the comfort zone. If you're enabling or doing too much for them or saving them or rescuing them or whatever, these maladaptive or dysfunctional type of things that, and your own anxiety is going crazy and you're just like, and you're doing too much, they're not getting pushed past their comfort zone. And I mean that in a good way. We need to be pushed past our comfort zone in a good way in order to grow. And they're never getting there. They're not, we're robbing them of that experience. So they need to be pushing themselves a little bit, just like anything. Like if you're working on a musical instrument, if you're doing a fitness routine, we have to push past the comfort zone if there's going to be any results. So that's in this gray zone. But here, this is what I call the threshold. If they're pushed too far, they shut down, they withdraw, they lie to you, they don't want to talk about it, they don't want your help, leave me alone, stop bugging me, I got this. There's that sort of zone. So there's sort of this middle zone, and that's how I describe it. Now, another concept that is very similar is called scaffolding. And scaffolding is, you hear teachers use this term a lot, but it's like you can only scaffold from where you're at. Imagine painting a house and you're scaffolding the first floor, second floor, third floor. You can't scaffold all the way to the fourth floor without doing but often with kids, what we'll do is we'll imagine they're here and they're not. So scaffolding means meet them where they're at. And that's where you push them past their comfort zone. There's another term that I want you to know about called zone of proximal development. One of our speakers or guest speakers was talking about that this year on the summit, but zone of proximal development. This is an old education term. And this means the zone of proximal development is this sort of the sweet zone of where you're at to, again, push past the comfort zone, but not too far past the threshold where you lose somebody. And this, again, a great analogy is the fitness stuff. Like if you have a trainer who pushes you way too hard, you're not going to want to go back to the gym or see that trainer. You're going to be sore. You might injure yourself. Any of those sorts of things, when you've gone too far, are not going to be helping. But if you are, sitting there doing whatever bicep curls with a pair of glasses, like that is not pushing you past any comfort zone. It's not doing you any good. And then the last one I want to talk about that is very similar is called gradual release of responsibility. Or letting go of the reins is another one, but gradual release of responsibility is another teacher term. Gradual release of responsibility. We want to gradually release the responsibility so that they're taking more and more responsibility. So these are some terms that can help just sort of break down when to know. Anyhow, those are comfort zone and the threshold, the zone of proximal development, scaffolding, gradual release of responsibility. Now I'm going to go back to this email and I'm going to break out some great things from this email that you might want to note. Here we go. Let me screen share here. Natural consequences. The term natural consequences, if you're not familiar with it, implies that there are consequences that naturally happen. And this is a great example of it. If the kid who at this age wants to be independent and is not, having certain natural consequences can help them to have their own experience to learn from it rather than you saving or rescuing them. So this kiddo missing their alarm clock and missing class and having to contact the teachers and figure out what they missed, that's a natural consequence. That's a natural consequence, so that is one I wanted to, now this I want to mention, not be my kid's executive function was one of the most frequent terms that parents said they learned from the summit this year. So in the TIFO summit that I run, the executive function summit, there's this big Facebook group where all these parents and teachers connect. And one of the most common things I heard is, I'm learning to not be my kid's executive function, which is this. They're learning to scaffold. They're learning how to not enable, how to do things that are not dysfunctional, that are functional, that they're learning how to help when it's actually helpful. So I wanted to point that out. Next thing I want to point out here is the parent says, I started getting anxious. And that's super telling, because what happens is when we as the adults start feeling our own anxiety or anger or strong emotions around what we want our kid to be doing, we are the one who are we're experiencing the consequences. We're anxious for them. And when is that serving us or them, and when is it not? So I love that they said that they started feeling anxious. Then this is so interesting. The parent didn't just follow that anxiety. They stuck to their guns. I was sticking to my word, and they felt a sense of relief. This is what I would term as surrender, letting go. They let go. They got a little space from it. They stuck to their guns. Then they felt a sense of relief. The anxiety started to subside. So look, I know a lot of you parents, because I work with so many parents out there, are experiencing a lot of anxiety, worrying, and you don't have to live that way. There are other ways to approach these things. I love this. I didn't think about it much during the day. They had some relief. I love this. They say, I noticed. This was my number one term from the summit this year, was I noticed. That I think so many speakers said something like this. How powerful a term to say, I noticed, rather than, why didn't you wake up for class? Why weren't you there on time? What happened? Saying, I noticed. And notice that this parent says, I calmly and quietly asked, I noticed you weren't up for class on time. What's up? Listen to the difference tone. I noticed you weren't up for class. What's up? Rather than, why weren't you up for class? We're paying for this. What's going to happen? How are you going to, like the difference in tone and how that sort of communication works is so powerful. Then this is one of my favorite questions I learned from George Betts when I was getting my master's. That sounds like a real problem. So they said, I missed my classes. I didn't wake up. So then the parent says, oh, that sounds like a real problem. What do you think? Rather than the parent solving it for them, what do you think? What do you think? It's such a different way of approaching it. And then the student says, yeah, here's what I did, blah, blah. And then the parent here uses a compliment. That was a really smart and wise way to deal with it. The parent noticed and pointed out, rather than focusing on all the things wrong, they noticed. That's really smart. That's wise. That's a great way to deal with it. The parent noticed them. So imagine that kid feels noticed, feels seen. Kid might not be aware of this. This might be very subconscious, but the kid's nervous system is calm. They don't feel attacked or scrutinized. They're able to be like, yeah, thanks for noticing. Yeah, that was smart and wise. Yeah, that is reinforcing. Okay. So this is awesome stuff. And then the last thing that I want to mention from this is this. Then I offered that we could talk later if she wanted about ideas for getting up. Imagine the difference between the lecturing, the nagging, the bugging, the using the logic, the using the reasoning, trying to explain to your kid what they should do differently, why, all this stuff. And imagine offering, being like, wow, sounds rough. I'm glad you contacted your teachers. Cool. If you want to talk about ways to do this, let me know. And then, like, how hard can that be for some parents? And for this parent, just based on the note, like, it might be really hard to be like, okay, I'm just going to offer it and be patient. And the child may not come back on this situation, but keep offering, and eventually they'll be like, hey, can you help me with this? Once that starts happening, you'll know a big shift is really happening. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about doing this work and seeing transformation in families, is seeing the communication change, seeing the nervous systems change, seeing everybody feel more secure with each other and just closer relationships. And that's what really this is about, is we have these kids that we care about and our relationship with them. So anyhow, I just wanted to share that as the topic today. And I'm going to go back to the beginning. Remember, what I talked about today is failure. That was like how I put it under the umbrella. It starts with this idea of the alarm clock, but it could be all sorts of things. So I don't want you to get stuck on the alarm clock. It's just really about how do we let them, quote, fail safe? How do we let them have their own experience in ways and help in ways that when we're really intending to help? I don't even think I told you who I am. What up, people? My name is Seth Perler. I'm an executive function coach, and I help struggling students navigate this thing called education so that they can have a good life. If you like what I'm doing and like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below. I think the comment that I want to hear from you, what I'm really interested in, and you can add anything you want, but where do you feel stuck? Like, what makes it so hard to let go? And when you do let go, what are you doing that's working? So what makes it hard? What makes you feel stuck? But what do you do that also helps to let go and get the ball rolling? I have a blog at sethperler.com, and every week I send stuff to you. And I got a lot of stuff going on the site, a lot of resources. Check out sethperler.com, leave a comment here, whatever you want. I'd really appreciate it if you like this, if you share it with a couple people today. Either way, I hope you have a great day. I hope your day is filled with joy, peace of mind. Most of all, I hope that today you have connection with the people that you care about and your kiddos. Take care.